Go.
Awesome. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 6th episode of the 4th season of Second Sons. As always, I'm Roy Rogers of the Philadelphia Meta. Currently, my fiance is playing Assassin's Creed 3 Liberation, which has been recently remastered for the PlayStation 4 as part of the DLC for Assassin's Creed Odyssey. So that's what's going on here in sexy Philadelphia. I am joined, as always, by Chris, the champion of my heart, Schoenthal. Chris, it was good to see you this weekend.
Yeah, for sure. It was a fun time. It was great to see you and all my other Thrones friends, and to finally get to visit beautiful Wausau, Wisconsin. Load up about $80 worth of cheese in my bag and bring it back home.
Beautiful is a word in the English language, and English is spoken in Wausau. So those are all true statements. And I'm also joined by everyone's favorite Swede and our technical maven, the man who is making it look like our guests have green screens. Buzz, how you doing today, Buzz?
Oh, you can do it yourself, actually, as the other smart guests are doing. The one. No, it's good. Cool. Did not go to a tournament this weekend.
Sad. We missed you, Buzz.
Mm-hmm.
We wish the Sandy Express had allowed you to join Jesse's Name Day tournament.
I mean, under the right circumstances, the Schoenthal Express might have done so, but...
It was in the works, but it was denied.
Curse democracy, always causing problems. And because our co-hosts are so wayward this week, we are joined by two very special returning guests. The king of numbers in Thrones himself, Trey. How you doing, Trey?
I'm great. I'm very jealous of everyone who got to go to Jesse's Name Day. That sounded like a lot of fun. So sorry I missed it. Maybe someday.
You were definitely missed. The tournament was incredible. The Domino is a great dive bar. So, but
we needed a good stream. We were missing a good stream during the thing. It was very frustrating.
Was the stream not very good? I really don't know.
Yeah, Kramer took the stream down after 2 rounds because it was just all dark and blurry.
I can imagine the Dom doesn't have the best internet, but that voice right there is a person who was at Jesse's Name Day tournament. Back once again, Tom Malucci. How you doing, Tom?
I am good. How are you?
I'm quite well, actually. I'm quite drunk. So why don't we just jump right into it? There's not a lot of FFG news as far as I know. It's been incredibly quiet a couple of weeks, except for the fact that probably short of Worlds, I would imagine that this could be Jesse's Name Day Tournament 2, the largest tournament in North America this year. It outpaced War Prime, which actually really surprised me. It doubly surprised me once I actually got to Wausau. And was just an amazing time. It was one of the most well-run tournament experiences that I've been to. It's clear that Jesse has been refining it, learning from some of the strengths of Ryan's event, some of the mistakes of events like what happened at Thronetoberfest, and just all in all, just an amazing experience. Tom, why don't you tell us how was your experience at Jesse's Name Day this year? Because all 3 of us who have been there, we've been to both, right? So, right? All of us were there last year and for this year, right?
Yep.
Sure.
Cool.
Yeah. I mean, the problem with the format is it's always going to take a long time for pairings, right? Because you have to do it all manually, and that could be very easily solved with some software. But other than that, perfectly run. Like there was no judge miscall-ins. Everything seemed to run very smoothly. Yeah, I thought it went really well.
Jonathan?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of organization and everything, I don't really have anything to add to that. I thought it was a really fun weekend, and everything seemed pretty well paced for the most part. And you know, not to counter what Tom said, because it does take a while to do pairings, but it's nice to have, when you're playing that many rounds, to have a decent break, even if your game went to time or close to time, to get your bearings and talk to your teammates and see how everybody did, and maybe get a $1.75 hams.
Sure.
So I thought it was really really good. I thought it was a very different vibe from Only. Um, that even though it was also in a bar setting, it was much more well lit. The table situation was significantly improved. Not anything against Only, it just is not built for the sort of grand plans that Jesse had for it. And everything about Wasa was really fun. So props to Jesse and props to the Dom and anyone else who helped Jesse out. I know he mentioned Ethan Dasher helped him out with a lot of the logistics. It's another Wasa local who's I met this weekend. He's a very good dude. So overall, great work.
Yeah, absolutely. I just really want to tell Jesse that because he could make it because he's still worn out, I think, from this long weekend, that he did a fantastic job. I think that almost, I think 99.9% of the people that were there have to say that it was just, honest to goodness, just a fantastically run tournament, an amazing experience. It really showed off Wasa and why. It really showed, like, for all the shit I'm going to give Wasa as a place this entire episode, and I will, why it was and is the spiritual heart of Thrones. Like, the Wasa people are incredibly welcoming. It was good to finally put, like, names to faces and, like, you see what the Dom is, see their game store, see these places that are just kind of memes for a lot of Midwestern players, but, you know, those of us on the coasts and other places haven't necessarily seen them. Tons of people bought Domino drink tokens. I didn't myself. I should have, but I didn't, to use as counters. All that kind of stuff that these sort of Wasa memes are starting to spread, and was just really good to just have a community put on such an amazing event with Jesse. And I think that Jesse and Wasa has a huge amount to be proud of. Again, particularly because it's in Wasa, Wisconsin. But let's jump into the analysis. Trey, you're the king of the numbers. What stood out to you about Jesse's Name Day Tournament 2?
Well, as somebody who's not there, obviously it was a big surprise that Night's Watch did so well, but maybe it shouldn't be, given like Night's Watch has a history of kind of overperforming in the war format, right? And I'm guessing because, I mean, I look at these names and I don't know half of them. So I can't really judge and say, you know, did a certain team do a great job of judging players per se, but I got to think there's some kind of relationship between so many new players or players who hadn't played before or lower experience level, you know, pool compared to the last Thrones War event in San Diego, that probably helped Night's Watch tremendously in terms of their matchups. Do other people feel that? I mean, that was the thing I talked a little bit with Chris about.
I agree completely with that. Yeah. I think that, not to steal your thunder, Trey, but I think you're completely right about that, that there's a combination of factors, and a couple of them that we talked about when we were chatting about it. First of all, like you said, the inexperience comparatively of some of the lower end, and so the chance to like poach some games that otherwise would be a 50-50 based on normal skill. And I think the strength of Night's Watch to some extent is that they can kind of play all their games the same. Like the Night's Watch game plan for most decks is pretty similar regardless of the opponent. Whereas for other houses, they have to kind of pivot and decide whether or not they're, to use a classic Magic term, whether they're the beatdown, whether they're the control player or the aggressive player. Night's Watch always has the same role in a game. And you know that going in, and you can kind of pilot it accordingly. And I think that really helped out.
That goes a lot for the player that plays the Night's Watch, right? But it also goes against newbies. If you sit against Night's Watch, you don't know how to play against it.
Yep, that's 100% true. I think that's a huge advantage that Night's Watch has in this format when you have players that, even if they're not newbies, they're not necessarily as experienced, because talking just with people who play semi-casually or semi-competitively, like not a lot of people like in that type of meta play Night's Watch. And if they do, they don't play very good Night's Watch decks. And so people don't necessarily know the Night's Watch play patterns the way in which somebody who's competing even consistently at the regional level will, right? Like as soon as you've played builders 2 or 3 times in a competitive setting, you get a sense of what it's trying to do. But if you've not, then you're going to fold, particularly with the recent additions that Builders has gotten to promote its consistency. Like At the Gates is literally the greatest card that the deck has ever gotten. It just smooths out so many of its problems, and kind of makes it like short of Sea of Blood, getting it just doing Sea of Blood things on the first turn and then passive power. It really just sort of makes most matchups positive. And so, yeah, Builders is in a good place. I'm just not sure which of these 2 glasses I should drink of before I get to my point here about Jesse's name day tournament and being on the winning team. But I think
I want to maybe break in here and give you a leading question, Roy.
Yeah.
One thing that I noticed is that, and that was another thing that Trey and I talked about, is how do you think the composition of the Night's Watch team was? Because to me, it reminded me a lot of the last time that Night's Watch won War Prime, where it was a lot of solid players, few superstars, but no real, just like bottom out, like low value types.
No start from this year, Prime.
Ouch. But again, I can drink well from my my 2 beer glasses here. But anyway, yeah, I think that's absolutely the case. I think that the like our marquee players may not have been like marquee players on Bara or Greyjoy or Targaryen, but they were committed Night's Watch players and were willing to put the time in to grind games. I mean, obviously the biggest example of it is Chase, right? Like Chase is one of the best Builders players in the world, up there with like Wama. And now Mike Lamzik, and who I also think is a very underrated like Builders player. I think what separated, this Night's Watch team from Johnny's Night's Watch team and Jesse's last year at Thronetoberfest. So Johnny, that's at War Prime this year, and then Thronetoberfest last year, is there was a commitment to play Builders. Like nobody had to be pressured into playing Builders. People were willing to and wanted to. Like a lot of players are like, I've always wanted to play Builders, or I've been interested, and I have a bunch of people here who enjoy playing the deck. Teach me how to play the deck. Give me a good build of it, and they were excited to do that. Like, I mean, Brandon Zimmer, like, said today in the Night's Watch chat, like, he's a Builder's convert. He came in like, I don't know if I want to play that deck, but grinding being part of the thing, he played it, and he played to success. I think he made it into the top 16, I think, or he might have lost his winning in. No, but either way, he's winning into the top 16. We had a bunch of people in the top 32. The other thing was Rat Cook. Yeah,
11 out of the 14 players in the top 32. Yeah. That is an insane conversion rate.
Rat Cook, though, is the secret story of our tournament as well, because Rat Cook lines up really well against a bunch of the best decks for a bunch of teams. Like it lines up really well against a bunch of the mid-range decks that are going to succeed in Greyjoy, that are going to succeed certainly in Lannister, succeed in Stark. Like, so you can get these wins, and you saw this with like Ben's performance. You saw this with Martin's, that put them in that top 32 spot to play in. And Ben had a really great run into the top
8. Yeah.
And like just like Rat Cook's in a really good spot. So you had these sort of 2 related but disparate ways of attacking the metagame. That was like a 1-2 punch, right, for a lot of teams. Like, so like on some of the best decks that were succeeding for teams, they lost to Builders, but then they're like, oh, they can beat Builders, but they also might have a chance to play against our Rat Cook players that they definitely folded to. So I think that's really Jordan and Martin and our team did a really good job of sort of finding that right balance. And we had some sort of more eccentric builds like Benji's, where I saw him in one game get like 4 core old bear triggers off. Like, it was a weird deck. Benji played it really well. I love Benji. He always has his own unique spin on these things. So we had a little bit of spice as well. But just like that conventional 1-2 punch that I think future Night's Watch teams should really consider, where you have a majority Builders team, but you have that attrition-y Night's Watch strategy as a sub-theme that can catch teams off, is a really powerful strategy. and really fun. Like Rat Cook is fun. Buzz, I likes that Nice Watch attrition style too, so he's not a complete hater.
I I have some Rat Cook decks line up, yes.
So there's a lot to do. Like I think a lot of kings are skeptical of Night's Watch because they're like, oh, builders. I mean, there are lots of people who enjoy that playstyle, but there's other really interesting and powerful strategies in Night's Watch that complement a bunch of people playing builders. So it'll let you create a powerful team if you're willing to put the time in.
Yes,
Yeah, it feels like.
was saying, sorry.
Go ahead, Trey.
I mean,
Go ahead, Trey.
to say it again, this does look a lot like Neil Kimball's team from a year ago, both in how it was built and it seems like the team strategy. So I think what I would say is like this looks like a really good example of like one of the right ways to do Thrones War, because you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but you wouldn't come away from this tournament saying, ooh, Night's Watch really is one of the best houses in the game, right? Like that's not actually the message here at all. You wouldn't put it in the top 3. And even though Night's Watch put 11 people in the cut, they only got 1 to the top 8 and 0 to the top 4. So it's not like once they got against the best players and the best decks that these decks did particularly well. But the idea behind the Thrones War format should be that any team should be able to win with any faction at the right price, right? That nobody's going into this with a dead hand. It's just whether did you pay appropriately for the house that you ended up with.
Now I know you mentioned the right price, and I think that's the other story to come away with is the kind of spectacular failure of Sam's strategy of drafting. And I don't think his strategy going in was like overpay for Lannister, but his idea that he could take a team of locals and grind enough with them to get them there, and it did not seem like that really paid off for him at all.
That was Brad's plan.
Yeah.
So Eamon's plan didn't work out, particularly under the leadership of Sam Bratz.
Well,
yeah.
Eamon's plan was don't get Barra. Just
Don't get Barra at this point. Yeah.
Right, and at the end of this, again, I wasn't there, but it seemed like Barra made up a little bit of ground against Lannister. I mean, it was more that Sam took himself out in the draft, right? Like it was over as of draft day, sadly. And Lannister clearly is really struggling though, because it's not like if Lannister wasn't really, really bad, we still would have seen Sam and 2 other top dollar players like Brad and Ryan, make the cut with Lannister. And like that, we did have people make the cut with Lannister at Thrones War. And now, like that didn't even happen on this one. Yeah, so Lannister, Sam both took himself out, and Lannister seems to be heading in the wrong direction compared to the field.
But I think going the other way with that, if Sam had lost that war and had even, if he'd had $30 more, but was on Barra and still had a lot of locals that he'd gotten even before he got to a house. I mean, it would have been even more disastrous, I think, because at least the caliber of players he had, you can hand them Landing Crossing, you can hand them a Landing Wolf Attrition. Barra decks don't do that. They can't. There's no like strategy where you can say, well, it's just a Barra deck. You do this thing and it happens.
Right. Sam and Tom were both dead when they started their Lanny death auction. The Lanny Barra death auction, like both those teams were actually already dead at that point. They just may not have known it, or they did know it. And I mean, this would be a good question back for Buzz, but I mean, this kind of like avoid Barra, avoid the bottom draft strategy has been around for a while because you don't want to be what happened to Sam and Tom here. It makes sense even, to grab something maybe you don't even love that much for a reasonable price early on, just to get yourself out of contention for, the death houses.
I've only really been involved in one draft so far, and it felt so good to have. In the first round, we have nailed our house. It's a top dog house. Perfect. We paid premium dollar, but it felt really good.
It was still a discount. I think.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Sure.
So as a group, I mean, it makes sense that the house values are going up. I think that will continue to be a trend. Because even like, Roy, I heard, I was listening to your commentary on the draft before, and CT was in a position where he had to spend 45 for Targaryen. In retrospect, I think that was one of the best moves he made. In the end, he tied for third and fourth. Third, Targ and Greyjoy kind of finished third, right? So even at $45, Targ was probably still a pretty good deal for CT. If he didn't win, I think it was more player selection.
I think it's important to contextualize where we are today versus where the draft happened, right? Because the draft happened right after the restricted list, and I feel like it was more of a bet to try to fight over Targ and pay for Targ, because nobody was 100% sure where the top, compared to where Buzz and Sid ended up, saying I played premium dollar and as you said, probably underpaid, even though they paid a lot for Targaryen. That was clear because there was 9 great Targaryen builds that you could do and tweak and make work for players. But CT going into that draft, there was maybe 2 that you could say after the restricted list was good and that you would want to have people on, and you're gonna have to put work into finding which ones survived the restricted list, what the new restricted card is going to be, and that's a lot of work. That's a risk, I think, compared to, and Stark, I think, also was in that same position where it was there were some clearly good builds that now you're going to have to put the work, and it's clear that CT and Evan and Ryan were willing to put that work in, but that work could have not paid off. You could have ended up paying what CT paid for Targ and be oh my god, not having playing his Dark Marine just puts us below the curve too much. I'm glad it worked out for them, obviously, selfishly, because several of my close friends were on Team Targaryen. I wanted them to do well, but it was a risk.
It was also when they got them, though. CT paid 45, and because he was in danger of getting into the Tom and Sam category there. It didn't happen right away. And, looking back, I think even by halfway through the draft, people were saying, how did we let Greyjoy go for 40?
Mm-hmm.
And they did fourth in the draft, but I think that probably still should that should be your most expensive house right now. If we had another event right now, don't you think Greyjoy would go for the most?
Yeah,
I agree.
They didn't win the team tournament, but they won the individual, and they showed. I think the problem Greyjoy suffered from is Greyjoy has so dominated the joust meta that people came into this event. I mean, I know our team did, and I don't know, Chris, you were a regent. Our team kept saying our decks are just not going to lose to Greyjoy. I mean, partially that was because we had to test them in playing in Joust Star Championships, but we're not going to lose to Greyjoy. We're not just going to get wiped out by Greyjoy-style strategies, these mid-range strategies that also Stark and to a lesser extent Targaryen also employ. It's we're going to build our decks to beat these top-tier strategies. And that's one of the reasons why Builders was in a good position, and Radcook, because they both attacked those strategies in different ways. So I think Greyjoy suffered from that, but because Greyjoy is just so fantastic in the Joust meta, honest to goodness, you've got to make a good argument to me if you're just not a super committed, constantly testing player. Why are you not playing Greyjoy, Crossing, or Sea of Blood, going into a Joust tournament right now? And Greyjoy suffered from that because you have a bunch of people targeting them. So that would be my answer to why they ended up in fourth.
What was your record? What was Night's Watch's record against Greyjoy?
I think we did really
10
well.
10-4.
10-4.
10-4. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
I mean, it seemed like that was when I was watching it from here. It seemed like it was 11, 11, 11 every round. So it was a really dominating team performance.
Yeah, and our losses were really close. Mine was
they really ran away with it.
Yeah.
And I think that was. Do you remember what round you played Lannister? Third or fourth, right?
I think it was before lunch. So it might have been
I think it was before lunch, and so that was the round where they 11-3'd Lannister, and everyone was like, "Wow, it might just be over already." Like there was just not much coming back from that for the rest of the teams. And I mean, I don't want to say that like changes the strategy, obviously, because you just try and win as many games as you can. But that felt kind of very dominant, and we weren't sure where we couldn't look at the schedule and see a round where that would be reversed against Night's Watch, like where it would go, even 9-5 the other way or anything like that. And so it was, it was a very dominating performance.
I mean, I think what was key to our early success is we played Targ first, and we did well. I think we ended up, it was like maybe we had 3 or 4 wins on them, which was not what we were expecting. Because Targ was probably overall, the way our lineup was, our worst matchups of the day. Maybe Martell, depending on like how they lined up, was also one of our really bad ones. So to start off the day up on Targ, and Targ is full of good players, was a good moment, and it built momentum. It also meant like the great thing that we had, like it also meant that like one of our big rivals, we had already shown that we could beat them, and that kind of creates energy with your team. And that's something that I've actually noticed a lot as a king, and Chris can probably speak to this. Being an unsuccessful king at Stark at Thrones War this year, and being a successful king last year for Tyrell. Early momentum is really useful, like because it builds morale in your team. It gets people committed. Like you can be like, oh, this is something that we could do, particularly if you're employing a strategy that is like at least semi-unconventional or somewhat can sometimes backfire. Like last year for us, Team Tyrell, we were all in on Mace strategies. Most of our decks were running some kind of Mace strategy, which can backfire if people were ready for you. People were not ready for us, really, and they particularly weren't ready for our Bitterbridge decks. And so it felt good to like be up for the first 2 or 3 rounds and to do well, and that creates enthusiasm with the team. Stark, we employed unconventional strategy, and we had a bad first round, and that sort of just puts people off the whole situation, and just makes it difficult for them to try to find those marginal wins to keep you in the game. So we got lucky in many ways in that way against Targaryen, the way it lined up, because our Targ matchup lined up perfectly. Like we could, if Jordan was like picking who each person should play, it mostly lined up that way just by sheer chance. So we got lucky.
I think the momentum's a really good point, and it's something that I discussed with Trey, and maybe there's no science there, but I definitely felt it. And I wish we had somebody from Team Tyrell on, because I wonder if it's true in the reverse too, because I know going into the tournament, a lot of the buzz around the room before the tournament started was, did Tyrell break it? We've heard they have a combo deck. We've heard they have this crazy unbeatable thing. And then we come out of the gates and we 9-5 them, including beating their king with one of our lower tier players. And it helped our momentum and to some extent, but I wonder if it significantly hurt their momentum to have that kind of slap in the face after the first round, especially if they thought, as everybody else thought of them, that they had something really crazy going on.
Buzz, I saw you flinch at that idea of momentum, so lay it on us.
I mean, okay, if you have bad players, yes.
Oh,
sure.
Here we go.
For sure. It's like in any sports. If you're down and you cannot break this psychology, you're already lost. That's it. There's nothing more to it. You just have to. It's always 0-0. Continue playing the game, as if it's 0-0 always.
There is a weird thing that is unique to this format, because it's not the same as a normal Swiss tournament. Because your best record players line up with other people's best record players, you can have matchups of 5-0 versus 3-2, right? If a team is doing poorly. And I don't really know how to quantify this, but there is a question that probably is worth exploring about how you build your team in terms of depth, the way that Night's Watch did here, versus a kind of a high-low strategy I mean, obviously you want as much value as possible, but when your best players aren't doing well, that also means, I don't know, like things don't line up right necessarily. And I'm looking at Terrell, and you saw that, like, even Nick and Jim are struggling. Nick Hansen and Jim Hansen, both great players. I was looking like the number of people, the people that Nick had to play over the course of his day. He went 4-3 against a lot of really good players with Terrell. He actually had a really good day at 4-3, but like sometimes that's what happens when I don't know. It's just an interesting thing, the way you kind of need that quality at the top because you want it for the cut, right? Like you want your best decks with your best players to get those extra wins in the cut if you're really going for the win. But you also need your best players to be beating the other team's best players, if that makes sense. Which may be another way I'm saying, which is why you want to be you should be paying or maybe even overpaying for the best houses, because the skill level among the best players is so good that you can't overcome a bad deck. Does that make any sense?
Yes.
Like Jim Hansen
sure.
obviously is an excellent player. Nick Hansen,
And Jim's deck is good. He's previously done much better than this with it. I think he was top 4 at a big event recently. At the Midwest Championship, he did really well at the Midwest 30+ person event with that same deck. So it is variance. I mean, the other thing. I mean, the thing we also have to keep in mind. This thing Glazer and I were talking about, which is like 4-3 is actually a much more respectable record than like we have a way of thinking about, particularly since the tournaments have moved to the X&2 cut into cutting that down to a top 16. 4-3 is a good record, and particularly with the high variance of where matchups go. So it's sort of hard to say necessarily, if Jim or Nick made any mistakes about like deck choices, and their king or queen made any mistakes with the deck choices. It could just be simply the matchups lined up poorly for them based on what was doing well one round versus what was doing poorly in another round. I think way more than in a traditional Joust tournament, where these things tend to get sorted pretty quickly. They don't get sorted very quickly at Thrones War. So,
I mean, that plays into the having to play every house exactly once. Like, it's so rare to find a deck that is equally well matched against 7 other houses, and probably impossible. But, and that's, again, the Night's Watch advantage, that sometimes that's just the case for them. They have good and bad matchups, but since their range is so polarized, it creates these high variance matchups for everybody else.
Yeah, it's actually, there can be even more chaos, because I think, here are Nick Hansen's matchups in the tournament. Asa Haynes, Daryl Weber, Cameron Davison, Brad Eamon, Jessica Thompson, Kyle Vansel, James McKenna.
That's
so
a damn murderer's row.
That's
he went
like
4-3 with Terrell on that, and that's incredibly impressive. Now, I feel like I've been on the other side of that kind of Thrones War chaos, and that like last year I went 5-2, but I kind of got the flip side of that, where I magically walked through my matchups and ended up 5-2. I mean, I'm happy with how I did and everything, but I didn't, when I played James Speck, I lost, is what I'm saying. Like, so there's some weird stuff that can happen there.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, any of these big tournaments that can happen, right? Like my first Gen Con, like the only like top tier player that I ended up in the Swiss against in 6 or 7 rounds was Patrick Reynolds, who won the event. I lost, right? And that's even more made worse by the way in which you only play one house well. Yes. And like this is the same thing. I got screwed in my Martell matchup this year at Jesse's Name Day tournament, where I got paired down to Alejandro. Like, if I came in,
That's not
and
a
someone's
normal
like,
down pairing.
so someone's like, "Hey, Roy, you got paired down this round." I'm like, "Yes, awesome, great win. I'm feeling good." Alejandro, I'm like, "Fuck." So that's when you get paired up, is when you're supposed to play Alejandro. Like, that's not how it's supposed to work, people. That's Thrones War to me. Like,
Yeah.
That
doesn't happen in
experience.
normal Swiss though. That can't happen
Usually,
in normal Swiss.
like,
yeah. Or it happens
and-
early round only. Yeah.
Yeah, early round, the first couple of rounds, and that sort of usually sorts itself out by round 3. And that's not the case here. And that was a very important game for me, which I lost. Thankfully, I was able to win my game against Tyrell. But yeah, so that's kind of the experience. And that's the sort of, it's like the weird alchemy of this format that is, I think, good for players below the median, but can be a very frustrating experience for players above the median in play skill, because it just is super wonky. And actually, I had some players who are tournament grinders come up to me who ended up in the bottom half, and they said they felt bad playing some of these games when they were like 1 and 2. And they took, you lose to like first round Nick Hansen, then you lose next round to Tom Malucci, and then you're in like the 0-2 bracket at Thrones War, and you're just like playing against people who are really inexperienced and don't necessarily even know what their cards do, way more than you would in a traditional Joust tournament. Even at a place like Gen Con.
Crush them.
Yeah, I mean, they get crushed, and you feel bad. Like, I had people be like, I love this format, but this time I'm losing, and I see this experience. So
Sure.
It's just an interesting give and take to this format that we don't always talk about or think
And
about.
the funny inverse to that is we had a player on our team who went 2-5. Not a great record, as Trey would say. I didn't pay for any wins from him. But his 2 wins were Colt Humbert and Chris Vack. It's like, how does that happen? Like,
I mean, look, I'm sorry, Chris. You didn't pay, but you did pay for those. Like, if there's 2 people that my 2 and 5 player I would like to beat, I would like my 2 and 5 players to beat those people.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, another example of this is how are you? You're Sean Bohan, and you're 0-3, and you're walking into your 0-3 matchup, and you face Mira Bird. Like,
yeah.
How does that happen? So the final thing I wanted to say before I have to run out of here is just an observation, and not to beat anybody up, but Terrell did really bad. We can look at Sam and Tom, and I mean Lanny and Barra we kind of knew were in trouble, and then they also had the draft go against them. Right, like things went poorly in their draft where Sam had to really overpay for Lanny, and Tom had set himself up where if he didn't get Lanny, he had all this money left over that he couldn't spend. He couldn't buy value at the end. He had money, he basically couldn't spend it. But you look at Colt's draft, and this looks like a pretty standard good draft, and they were in the bottom 3. And the bottom 3 were way down from everybody else. So it would be hard not to draw some conclusions about Terrell, that either that or they did a bad job deck building. But I have a hard time believing that Jim Hansen was part of a team that had a bunch of bad decks.
I had them as top 3 for drafts for sure. And I had Tyrell as one of the best houses out of the restricted list. I don't know what decks that he brought, but I don't know.
Something happened.
Something happened. Yeah.
They brought.
It makes me
Tyrell
wonder if they
Lion,
went too deep on the combo thing.
They brought.
Well, only 4 people brought their combo deck.
Do you include the dragon? Because the drag. So
Well, there was 3 dragon and 1 fealty, I think. I don't think anybody
I
else.
thought there were 2 fealties.
Yeah, that's
I
the
thought
thing.
only Colt was playing
And-
fealty, so maybe 5.
And even if they only ended up there, it's not impossible to think that maybe they had some other players dabbling when they shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or if they could have gone better without the combo decks at all. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think everybody that played the combo deck did okay, except for Sandy.
And Sandy had 0 reps with the deck. So.
And he started
Sounds
drinking
like a
very
really
early.
bad
Oh,
idea.
and he was fucked out of his mind by the middle of the day.
I mean, I don't,
Buzz has a spreadsheet for that.
yeah. I do. I don't really like getting reps with. I don't get reps with the decks before tournaments. Not that much at all. But if I play combo, I will play solitaire for hours. It's so needed.
Well, combo is the easiest deck to goldfish, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's all about just finding the interactions and knowing like what you need to put in your hand and in the discard pile. And then you can, if someone tells me like Greyjoy Crossing, if I know the combo deck's interactions, like, and they tell me Greyjoy Crossing is a bad matchup for these reasons, like, as long as I know the interactions, I can understand how that works. You don't need actual reps with a combo deck again in a field. You just need to understand the interactions. So.
All right, I'm going to take off at this point.
We're
Thanks,
glad to
guys.
have you, Trey.
Ciao.
Thank you as always.
Later.
Take care, Trey.
So Tom, you were a last minute addition.
I was.
You were. Tell us about your experience.
I
How
mean,
was Team
with the
Greyjoy?
team,
You played
it-
Drown God, which ended up winning the tournament. Again,
Oh.
congratulations to Sean Emberley, friend of the show.
I got baited hard. Deck's so bad. I had a much very different day than Sean. I had a lot of matches that were like one piece away from going off, and I just never saw the last piece. So,
that feeling.
and my game against Colt was amazingly horrible. I mulliganed into 2 1-cost locations. That was my setup. And then he comboed off on me turn 2 and just won. I was like, all right,
I
cool.
mean, at least it was like putting you out of your misery quickly.
Yes, super quick. I was like, just finish this, and he did. So, but the team experience was great. They had some awesome swag. They made these 3D or 3-dimensional like tentacle and sushi tokens for power, which were really cool. Kyle was a great king, and we did the dinner, and I met everyone, and I joined like the day before, so I had a lot of time to prep.
Oh yeah.
What was your
I
thought
should've-
process choosing the Drown God deck over a more traditional mid-range deck that you played? Just was that a boredom factor?
When I found out I was on the team, I was at lunch with David, who's a huge Drown God,
Yeah.
a guy, and Jesse, who's a huge Drown God guy.
Oh gosh.
And they just and
You
they
were
both
just
just
railroaded.
They hard baited me, dude. They hard baited me. So
I mean, David went 4-3 again, perfectly respectable, and he's won. Buzz should respect this. Won German tournaments with Drown God, so it's a respectable thing that David's done with that deck. So
I think the deck is fine. I just think it's a little fragile. Like
Mhm.
there are essentially 2 pieces that you need: the Disciple and Tarl, and if you don't get them or they get controlled, it's just gonna be a bad time.
But that is basically like Drown God combo-ish, right?
yeah,
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
their build was Drown God, Greyjoy Sun combo.
Yeah.
But it had a little bit of flexibility to sort of play out when it couldn't combo off, but it still basically relied on the combo, if not to just straight up win the game right away. But
the
to
big
close.
thing, the big thing was the old version needed Tarl, right? The new version, you really just need the Disciples, because with Drown God Fanatic and Desert Raiders, you can get tons of triggers on the Disciples just from bringing those things in. So either your opponent can't win challenges, or your Desert Raiders just trigger over and over and over. So it was that helped it a little bit, but like if you didn't see like 2 or 3 Disciples, then you needed Tarl so you could get more triggers, and
With the monocolor Drown God deck, you either your opponent has to literally do nothing, or have no way to interact with your board, and then you can win, or you have to see Tarl. Now, Desert Raiders interaction with the Disciples makes it so that mid-range decks can't beat you anymore, or at least easily. So you really have to have a plan for Greyjoy, or for Greyjoy Sun, and you saw this if you watched. This wasn't streamed, obviously. CT's, and it punishes mid-range decks like CT's crossing deck or rush decks that stumble. If you can't immediately put pressure on the Drown God deck, they're gonna just go off eventually. Like, there's just so much redundancy now with both Fanatics plus the Raiders that if you give them the time, if you're not just making them have to protect their board, they're gonna just win. Like,
Yeah.
And they also have a little bit more security in that the new Big Aaron is a great card and doubles as essentially a second Tarl as a second house card for you to get if Tarl's not working out, or if you don't find Tarl, you can still have Aaron and dupe Aaron and use him as your house card and not put him in challenges as well.
yeah, you have to see new Danny if you're Targ, and then and some Targ decks aren't running new Danny. Anyway, problems. So it's a strong deck. It's not, but it's not like anywhere near the ladies combo deck style, auto wins. Like, you have to work for it as a Drown God player. Like, you have to know the interactions. You have to know what your outs are and know what the lines are to line up with what your opponent wants to be doing. But it's an extremely powerful and consistent deck. So
my favorite game of the day was against Targ. The one thing I didn't want to see, Sea of Blood, of course. And my opponent sits down, and I hadn't played Game of Thrones since November before the tournament. So I'm like, I literally haven't played a game with or against Sea of Blood. And I said that to my opponent. And he goes, it's fine. You just need to block the military challenges. And I'm sitting there laughing in my head because I'm like, I have 13 strength worth of military icons in this deck. There's no way I'm stopping your military challenges. And then he played Drogo first turn, and I just hard lost. Like, it was over turn 2. But when he said, you just got to block the military challenges, I was like, you have no idea how bad this is going to be. So.
Yes, play 3 Desert Raiders.
Wasn't enough.
Other thoughts about the tournament and its meta? I was overall pretty impressed by Targaryen. I think that they showed a variety. The thing I think of all the decks that you can easily press export and push into a broader meta, I think it's the decks that CT and them brought. I think that CT Star Crossing was really good. I think that Gaiman's HRD Marine was really good. I think that the fealty they had was really good. I think all 3 of those decks, literally, if you showed up to a regular Joust tournament, you could just play them tomorrow and they would do well in the meta. So I think that's probably the biggest contribution to the broader Joust meta that the tournament provided. I don't think, spoiler alert, Drown God is going to be as good just straight out of the tin in a Joust meta, but again, because you're going to run into a lot of Sea of Blood.
For sure.
That's why you don't play the combo version. You just play the cancer version.
What wasn't CT playing Reigns? I didn't think he was playing Crossing.
I thought he was playing Crossing. I could be wrong. He might have been playing Reigns, but whatever it was good. Like, I could be just conflating his wars or his worlds deck with what he was playing.
His worlds deck was Crossing for sure.
But it was a good deck. I was just impressed overall with the quality of the decks of Targaryen. And I think we actually haven't credited Schoenthal, because I do also think that he built Martell had some really cool builds. I think that spoiler alert, I physically built Glazer's Martell Wars. I think so. I had a secret insight going into the tournament of what that deck looked like what he and Asa Haynes played were, and who else was on that? Chris, who else was on that Wars?
Harrison was on third Wars. Yeah,
were really cool builds. Like, it was a different way of attacking that archetype that we haven't really seen before. Right? They didn't have a lot of the usual bullshit like plots to put gold in the plot phase to cancel people's plots. It was, not built along the lines of what was popularized last summer by Aaron, by Mira, and by Andros and the Storm Bros. Like, it was a very different. It was like a controllier, grindier build than the combo build that I think was really cool.
It was based on someone's build, right?
I think it was based on Hana, maybe.
Yeah, it
Hano?
might have been Hano's. I'm
Yeah.
not sure.
Because I think
I
Hano
know
published.
Aaron was shockingly was leading all the deck building, as you can imagine.
Aaron
He
cares a lot about
he
orange cards.
he does, and he did a great job, and I was so happy to have him on the team because I don't know what decks we would have been playing without him. Because even the deck that I ended up playing, the attrition fealty deck, which I would happily play in a second, um, was something they just like sort of sat down on a call and just banged out together, and they're like, "Wow, we got a new deck," and that kind of was the replacement for Martel Wolf, which, despite some odd comments today on Facebook to the contrary, we tried at least 3 different, maybe 4 different Martel Wolf decks with different restricted cards and stuff like that, and none of them worked. But I thought I was really proud of my team. I consider myself to have had the steal of the draft with Asa. Having her on the team was just incredible. I was very happy to see her do well, and the rest of my team as well. We had good chemistry. We had a lot of fun together, building and trying to. We tried some builds at the beginning of the process that didn't end up panning out. Like going right after the draft, Aaron predicted that we would have 3 people on Martel Faith, and we ended up having 0 people on Martel Faith. That deck was not great. But exploration and time, and I thought we did a pretty good job overall. Like Trey was saying with the numbers, I think there was like a top 5 and a bottom 3 in terms of the haves and the have-nots, and we had I think 4 win-ins in our last round against Greyjoy, and so if 2 of those go differently, and then those 2 people make different runs, the standings look very different. So
Yeah, and
happy with Team Martel and
to the eventual champion, right, Chris? So that's not a
I
bad feeling.
did lose to eventual champion Sean Emberley. It was a bad feeling, actually, but it's
There are worse bad feelings, I guess you could say.
there are worse bad feelings. It's true.
Yeah, I think Martel really surprised me. In the sense that, I mean, it didn't surprise me in the sense that, like, I've known Aaron long enough that if you give him unvarnished access to orange cards, and that's the only thing he's required to test for a long period of time, he'll come up with a lot of really good decks, particularly when he's working with people like Chris and people like Alejandro. Like, you're going to get good decks for featuring orange cards. But, yeah, I think I really want to shout out Asa, because Asa was on the 3rd episode of this show. So I guess she counts as a former co-host of the show, filling in for me for reviewing, I think, the 3rd chapter pack? No. When did the Stark box come out? How far into the first cycle?
I think it was the 4th pack, because I remember the Stark box and
we did the Stark
First
box
Snow
episode
were like right together.
That almost killed Naj, and caused him to quit the show, because we did like a 4-hour review. And then I couldn't make the next episode, and Naj couldn't make the next episode, so they got Asa to fill in for me. And they're sitting in their college dorm room bed, leading an episode of Second Sons. So Asa is a very old friend in Second Edition, so I was incredibly happy to see her do well again. So, and particularly play really well. Like, there were a couple times where
it was incredible. Yes.
Yeah, particularly her game against Matt. Like, I thought that Matt had her. Like, I walked away like, okay, like, I'm glad at least one of my friends walks away from that game winning. But then I came back and Matt's like, oh, I just conceded to her. I was like, oh, shit. Like, that went sideways really fast. So
also notable was her game against Mira. Mira was trying to do the honorable thing and win with 15 power instead of with time. And Asa was able to sneak a Prince's Plans plus Doran's game on defense win out right before time, which was just incredible to watch.
Very fair. So, yeah, I really want to congratulate Jesse for an amazingly successful tournament. Incredibly well run. Wasa has had so many luminaries pass through it. I mean, you got Sam Bratz, Wasa native. It took Wasa importing Jesse Carpenter to get 100 and how many people was it? 107?
115
115
Yeah,
people
that's a lot.
to show up. 4-hour drive from civilization, 3-hour drive from civilization.
Hey, there's an airport like 15 minutes away.
Yeah, sure. There is an airport like 15 minutes away. It's kind of like Bucks County Regional Airport, which is 15 minutes away from me right now. But it's such a small town. Like all the Uber drivers were like, "There's these Canadians in town going to the same bar, and people from California want to go to the same bar." I'm like, "Yeah, a friend's birthday party is there." So
there was one day where David Moran and Harrison and I were staying at the same Airbnb, and over the course of the day, we ordered an Uber or Lyft, and it wasn't all the same service. It was Uber and Lyft, some combination. We ordered 3 times, and all 3 of us got the same driver.
Yes.
So that was fun because he picked us up on 3 different accounts, but the same trio of us. So
it was just it took that to happen to make Wasa the true spiritual heart of Thrones. So I'm just incredibly proud of him. I'm proud of the community there. And everyone I know that was there is excited for Jesse's Name Day 3. So hopefully we can all attend again, except for Buzz. But maybe Buzz can attend this year. The Sandy Barnabas Express might be able to make it happen. I hear you almost joined Team Tyrell, Buzz. That was the hot secret news.
Martell was
no, he was.
I think.
He was. I was definitely ready to write that check. If his wins counted, I was in.
So anyway, all in all, a really great event, and one of the pillars of the community now. Although I will say, having done 2 war events in about 6 weeks, I am ready to exit the war meta for a little while.
It's a really freeing feeling.
I have heard some mumblings about people yelling freedom from certain houses.
Chris Schoenthal.
Or maybe Alejandro.
And Alejandro.
Martell for 6 months.
Alejandro, I
Try
can imagine.
Greyjoy for a year and then talk to me.
Although there was a couple times you literally chose to play Greyjoy. You had other options.
No,
Chris.
No,
too,
before that, there was I did Worlds and Stalic with Greyjoy, but then I went into my year of Greyjoy Thrones War. But the last one, Thrones Toberfest, I told Mike, because I knew Mike wanted to draft me. I was like, "Don't draft me if you're getting Greyjoy. I know he's a Greyjoy loyalist." And then he drafts me, and I'm like,
"Most Greyjoy loyalist person I have ever met."
Yes, for sure. So then he drafts me before he gets Greyjoy, and I'm like, "I told you to not draft me if you're getting Greyjoy. You better not take Greyjoy." And then he takes Greyjoy, and I'm like, "God damn!" But yeah, it was.
Rip.
It is what it is.
Rip indeed.
Rip indeed. But I'm excited. There's a break for a little while for those of us here who are able to make UK Thrones War over the summer, late summer. Buzz, are you going to try to make UK Thrones War?
We're trying to get a few Swedes going, actually. So yeah, hopefully.
Are you going to try to hop across the pond, Tom?
I am definitely not making that one.
All right. But expect after my wedding some Thrones Toberfest announcements. So in June and July, there'll probably be some. So expect the late summer, early fall for this. Which actually, while right now that feels far away from now, it actually creates this weird Thrones War season. There's a 6-month if we say August, right? Isn't that when they're thinking August, September? Isn't that when they're thinking September? Yeah. September to March. That's a weird 6-month. That's when all the war tournaments are, and then everything else is the rest of the year. So
and especially UK Thrones War and Thrones Toberfest gets real weird with Worlds and Starlight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it'll be interesting. So I'm excited, but I am excited to not have to play Stark cards Night's Watch cards. I'll probably play Builders at Vax event. But anyway, speaking of the broader meta, so let's think about where the meta is right now. We've had a long time for the restricted list to settle. We've had an influx of brand new cards. We had a weekend of brand new cards. Does anybody have any feelings about where the meta is right now?
It's at the gates.
That's
All
what
right,
it
Buzz,
is. Right
tell
at
us
the
more.
gates.
Why is at
Rip.
the gates a good card?
Reliable economy.
Mhm.
It's fealty, but you get it. You can have fealty and fealty. So,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yep.
Yeah, it makes
Yeah, I
Aaron
mean-
Clay's favorite card a very good card.
It's like let's restrict trade routes and print at the gates. Yes, let's do it. Good idea.
Well, I think at the gates is something different than trade routes, right? Like it creates consistent economy across turns, so there's less like burst turns in my experience, and more like smoothness. I mean, that's what I experienced this weekend. Like at the gates, just smoothed builders variants out, where it's just like you turn utility plots or valor, like you turn valor into a 4 gold if you fetch
Yeah.
Gates of the Moon, which just like fundamentally changes how that plot plays.
So,
Yeah, go ahead, Buzz.
so a bad thing about trade routes was you couldn't reset someone because they just wait, and you essentially had to force the trade routes, and if you couldn't, you lose. Now it's kind of the same. You put at the gates and you get good economy, and now you can just put more draw in and you just flush the board all the time instead. Not one burst turn, but more stuff every turn, a little bit more every turn. So I don't know. The mid-range strategies should be very happy with this. Sure, the people who run resets are happy to have reliable goal on their Valor turn, but
So do
Yeah.
their opponents.
so do their opponents. And I really dislike when like 90% of the decks are like, I should probably open at the gates every game, no matter what.
Hmm.
So, do you think this is a candidate for restriction already? I mean, maybe not right away, but looking 6 months or a year ahead, do you think it'll get? Is it that ubiquitous?
It should be, because it's ubiquitous. It doesn't matter how good it is. If people play it too much, it should be restricted regardless.
Well, whether we agree with Buzz's philosophy, do we think that Danny will? So the ultimate question also, the thing that we don't really have a sense of right now, because they printed City of Secrets with, right, that's the other city plot.
Right.
At the gates.
The
Like
value.
at the gates is super telegraphed as like, if you want, like, we don't know how powerful the city plots are, right? So if the city plots end up being really powerful, you need some kind of opener. And so Danny, if he's going to restrict at the gates at some point, he's going to have to print some other opener for cities, right?
Yeah.
Like Nate had to do this in first edition, where what was it? Power Behind the Throne? Was that like useless
No.
city plot? What was it called?
No.
There was a useless city plot that they
Oh, yeah.
used to open back in the day, like city chains would open. That didn't really do anything, but it had decent
Are you sure
stats.
it was a city plot?
It was definitely a
There
city
was
plot.
No, it's not. It wasn't a. I don't think it was a city. It was the one that was all three. It was a military intrigue and power. It was a military battle, intrigue, gambit, power struggle. That was
maybe
a
it was that.
601.
Pitch
It was
preparation.
a 601, but you could only do one challenge.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was the opener because there were so many cards that reference those traits.
Right. Like
I do think it's funny that the first edition cycle of city plots also opened at the gates almost all the time, but at the gates did something totally different.
True.
Yeah, so something they could do is make. I don't remember if At the Gates does that now. Can you play it if you have a city plot in your use pile?
You can, but you don't get the card doesn't come into play.
Okay.
Yeah, it goes to your
So
hand if it's
They
not the
would
first
have to
plot.
make other really good city plots with that same restriction, so that you have to choose. The issue is then everyone will have a city plot.
The draw one tried to do that, right? Because it's the same thing. If
Yeah.
everybody draws two, and then if you don't have one, or if you have a city plot and you have to discard two. So like it's supposed to be okay. This is better if I don't have a city plot, but like if you compare the two, it's not.
No,
comparable.
that one is actually better if you have a city plot. So
No.
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 Yes.
If you don't have a
No,
city plot,
I think
Yeah.
Buzz is right.
Yeah, I'm right.
really?
Yes, I'm right.
Hold on. Okay.
So most of the cities, if they're going to do the same as the first edition, it's good to have more cities. They will be stronger if you have them in use pile, and they can get higher numerical value if you have like it's kind of the use pile thing. But the most powerful ones used to have these restrictions where it doesn't trigger if you have a city in your use pile, and that's I like the design. I played cities a lot. The issue is if there is I will open this always, even if I don't run cities.
King's Landing Coup.
Oh yeah.
That
card was great.
That card
it was
is really good.
If you have no other city plots,
Card was incredible.
reveal the top card of your deck and add it to your hand every time you win a challenge as a defender. That was useful, but I never honestly had my opponent.
And 4-8-1, right?
4-8-1.
Yeah, 4-8-1.
Actually, do challenges into me when I flip that.
Wasn't it city and power struggle or something as well?
It was power struggle and city. Yes.
It was really good.
But anyway, it was an opener that they printed because they restricted the other openers.
Sure, yeah.
So, or changed them like at the gates.
Yeah. So
it's funny because the ubiquity of at the gates is going to make City of Secrets way worse, because City of Secrets is each player without a city plot has to do the discard. But if everybody has a city in there, it's not going to matter, and it's just going to be an awful plot that nobody plays because it's draw 2. Although, as Roy has pointed out on multiple occasions now, it'll still be in combo decks because combo is awful.
Yeah. We're spoiling both Second Son's conversations and Secret Long Lancer's chats about these plots. But I just brought up the city plots.
Right, it's a secret that a plot that draws cards is good in a combo deck. All right, sorry, I'll keep my mouth shut.
Yeah, I mean, like, the number of city plots that was restricted, there were a lot, like manning the city walls and negotiations at the Grand Sept, and then at the gates.
Well, it's funny because negotiations was the one that didn't want other city plots, though.
Yes. Well, I think it was given the city trait to make it so you couldn't play it in city decks, right?
Right. Yeah.
But we got that as an event for 2.0 players. But
yes, we did.
Anyway. So beyond at the gates, the other major takeaway of testing for Thrones War, Thrones War, yes, but also Jesse's Name Day, was Sea of Blood. I think that the meta, the main thing I've been saying to people is we are in a very similar meta to where we were, I guess it would have been spring and summer of 2017?
With Reigns?
With Reigns, yes, with Reigns. The ways in which... the agenda distorts the meta. Like, even if you go into a tournament that there's no one playing X Reigns or X Sea of Blood, decks are ready for it. And if you don't have a game plan against Sea of Blood, you will not do well. And the best thing that you can be doing in the meta right now is some form of Sea of Blood. That's not saying that there aren't other good decks, and there are good decks that answer Sea of Blood. But like the baseline, the level 1 strategy is Sea of Blood. And that really distorts the meta in a way I don't really enjoy. Like, I don't enjoy the play patterns that Sea of Blood promotes. I don't like how it revolves around the first turn. In the same ways, I didn't like Reigns of Castamere because I didn't like the ways in which it punished houses that just naturally didn't have intrigue icons, or if you just simply didn't draw like an intrigue icon, or set one up, or you drew one that had 2 strength and your opponent had one that had more strength, or saw 2 intrigue icons, you just couldn't do anything. Like, just the frustration of that.
I think the Sea of Blood is more punishing.
It is more punishing, yeah, because it blows up your locations and kills your best characters. Yeah, but I mean,
there was no real hammer with Reigns. Even if you got a Reigns trigger, there was things that would incrementally swing the game, but there wasn't necessarily. Other than, I guess, if you really want to consider the Cersei 2-claim nonsense, there wasn't really anything that was just like, oh, you're dead on the first turn, which is absolutely what Sea of Blood can do.
Yeah. If Sea of Blood gets a trigger on the first turn, you should lose most of the time. because they will get one on the second turn and on the third, and you have no locations, you have no economy. You
And you have
reset,
no
and
good
your valor is
character.
2 gold. Yeah.
Yeah, like if they do things on the first turn and they open a big gold plot and they save 1 gold and they go put search up put to the torch. Oh, I had to put in my hand, so I put your best character and blew up your best location. You're just like, okay, like why should I be playing this? Like it, yeah. But I mean, like Reigns had a different play pattern. Right, Reigns was all about setting up that turn for you to flip into Wildfire, and then the next turn to flip into like Filthy Accusations, which shut down the response to your opponent's Wildfire. Anyway, to how they responded to your Wildfire. Anyway, it was a different play pattern, but I think it distorted the meta around a single color of challenge in a way that I think is really unhealthy. Well, like, this is me purely now speaking, not analyzing the meta semi-objectively, but as a player, I just don't enjoy it. Like, I don't enjoy Sea of Blood games very much. That's why I played a version of Builders to just beat Sea of Blood most of the time. But the key thing is most of the time, right? Even the best answers to Sea of Blood, like I think the only deck that almost like in the close to 70 to 90% of the time beats Sea of Blood is Martel Cohor. And that's sad. Like you would literally have to make it so they can't play the game. Like Builders and Martel Cohor make it so that the Sea of Blood player just can't play the game. That's the only way to like consistently defeat them.
A lot of Targ decks have a good time against Sea of Blood, both for the burn and for they have efficient military characters baselining.
Yeah, sure. But the problem is like Targ just
the best thing to be doing with efficient military characters is Sea of Blood.
Like, is Targ Sea of Blood. Like Targ Sea of Blood is
one of the.
You don't think it's one of the best alongside Greyjoy?
And one of the best Sea of Bloods, yeah, but not one of the best Targ decks. I mean.
So you think you'd rather play Fealty or HRD?
Yeah.
Okay, I mean that's fair.
And even if it's like okay, Targ Fealty is the 3rd best Sea of Blood, Greyjoy Sea of Blood is still way ahead, right?
Yes. So Tom, you just jumped into the game. How did it feel? Or jump back into the game. How did it feel?
Sea of Blood?
Or just the meta?
Okay.
Oh, I mean, similar. Not like I because of the Thrones War meta. Like I only saw Sea of Blood once. I would expect it would feel a lot different if I went to a normal tournament and just had to eat 5 Sea of Blood matchups. You know what I mean?
Our store champ had 50% Sea of Blood.
Oh.
Yep.
And we were some players who specifically like, okay, we're not playing Martell or we're not playing Sea of Blood because we love Martell in Sweden.
Yeah.
It was still 50% Martell and 50% Sea of Blood in the field.
Only semi-mutual exclusive because there's a decent Martell Sea of Blood deck out there.
Yeah, I mean, I gave the deck that Chris and Aaron were testing for Martell, I gave it to my Padawan, who sadly quit the game, but we're playing Arkham with him, so I said, oh, come to our store champ, come play, I'll give you a deck, and he won with Martell Sea of Blood, so...
So is he moving up to a journeyman then? Is he back in the game?
No,
Wins tend to be
I lost him to the World of Rokugan.
Rip
indeed. Oh. Yeah.
And I mean, we lost me to the world of
Warcraft.
I don't know. No, actually, what's it called? Arkham Horror. The
Arkham
Lovecraftian places.
Yeah. It's not a.
That's where I live, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Lovecraft started in Providence, 5 minutes away.
Cool.
It's true.
Come on down. Fight some monsters. No, I think Sea of Blood is a problem, like you said. Like, just it's gonna be everywhere. It's gonna be annoying. You gotta have an answer.
There are really cool Sea of Bloods like Hanos, and I think I really like the Sea of Blood that Jacob Wolleman has built out of Lannister. They are a lot more interesting, and
are they still running Port to the Torches?
sure, but they're not like, okay, I have 6 events. They are put to the torch and put to the sword. I put military icons. Let's go.
Well,
That's way
it's
different.
3 put to the torches, 2 put to the swords, and 1 nightmares. Come on, and then Isle of Ravens. Just shuffle them all in.
You see, what I want to do is put 1x of each of them, 3 Isle of Ravens, tricks. And Hano's song list is amazing.
Out of Tyrell Sea?
Yeah.
That does sound sweet.
Tutor's powerful, right? So, I mean, this is the classic thing, though, with these powerful agendas. Like, same with Wars. We can talk about a million, like, cool Wars builds that people had. But, like, the most efficient way that we're going to see at most tournaments are going to be the ways that people...
Not the cool version.
Not the cool version, but Buzz with 1 of each event and Isle of Ravens. But always put to the torch. Yeah. Always put to the sword. Sometimes nightmares.
Yeah. It'd be cool if there were some more restrictions. Right now, it's a card advantage agenda. You get it, and economy agenda in one package. If you had to discard an event to tutor, that'd be something. If you could only include 1x of each event, that'd be something. But now it's just busted.
Or if you got to play the token to reduce the cost, or go get the event, like one or the other.
Sure.
Like,
yeah, the ability to either play the event or tutor it would be much fairer. Or you could only play events during military challenges, not like okay, I can only like play events. The only challenge I can play events during is military, but that whole pre-challenge window, I can do everything else that I want to do.
Rides
and then do my intrigue challenge.
Oops.
Yeah. Which is how I first read that card when it was spoiled. I was like, oh, okay, that seems relatively fair. Like it's like that agenda for first edition that like you can only do it during military. No, wait, no. There's this whole action windows between challenges.
Yeah.
But we can't redesign the card. I wouldn't be surprised if we see put to the sword restricted. Eventually, I feel like based on the amount of not Greyjoy location control that Danny's printed, that there's an expectation that if you really, really hate Martell and you really, really hate Night's Watch, and to a lesser extent Greyjoy, and you just hate location strategies, that you should play Sea of Blood for the free put to the torches to blow them up. But so I won't expect to see that go away, but I would expect him to maybe hit some of the other events, particularly put to the sword, which is really right now only played in Sea of Blood. It's basically like, okay, you want to play Sea of Blood, here's your cost. You can't play Iron Minds, you can't play Dorn.
You can restrict Sea of Blood as well.
You could. But I think he'll avoid that as well.
Yeah.
But
if it keeps on being 50% of the meta, maybe he should consider it anyway.
Maybe. Well, I mean, we'll look for the big. I mean, we'll look for the big non-war event, right? We're in the regional season. Yeah. We're going to start getting some of the bigger Stolic events, right? Yeah. Paris is soon.
Paris is soon. Then in May there is in Utrecht, right?
Is that when? Is Utrecht isn't Dockside, right? Or is it?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's Dockside.
Kubicon at the end of May.
Arnhem. Yeah,
Kubicon at the end of May. Yeah. We'll have a couple big necked events. It looks like Vax event at the end of this month is going to be really big. The first Connecticut event, which hopefully Tom Malucci will be able to make it out to for Mike Aruro in Connecticut, is in May. And then Gen Con and Euros is also this like earlier summer usually, right?
Nats, UK Nats is first, and then Euros. Yeah, they're both pretty early.
Yeah, so we're hitting the big boy season, so we should start getting some big data about where this is. I feel like we recorded the same thing about Wars to Come this time last year. We were like,
we got our big data out of that one.
Jeez. If it doesn't change, Danny War restricted, and he did eventually. Was it before War? It was right before Worlds, right? Is when he restricted Wars to Come.
Or
was it after Worlds?
Sounds right.
I don't
No, it's
remember.
definitely before Worlds 2018.
It was after
Almost
Gen Con, before Worlds, right? Because it destroyed the. It was right before Thrones Toberfest. That's what it was. Yeah. So. Yeah. So. Yeah, I think that we're basically tapped out, as they say, of conversation here. Anybody got any final thoughts before I jump into saying goodbye?
Not really. We got. I do want to shout out the birthplace or birth event of SoCal Thrones. Kingdom Con is this coming weekend in San Diego. Not that I necessarily expect anybody who isn't already coming to show up, but it is a very nostalgic event for a lot of us in Southern California, and it is going to be the last iteration of the convention itself. The organizer has done it for 10 years, and so he's shutting it down. So it's going to be a pretty emotional weekend. Good friends, lots of board games, lots of beverages. So that's going to be it's going to be a pretty big deal for us SoCal types. I don't think there'll be a stream. There's nobody out here that's really super capable of such things. So,
are you guys going to do something this same weekend outside of it?
It's been talked about. I imagine that an event of some type will replace it, just because it's, we have been in the past and hope to continue still be one of the premier metas in the country, and so we would like to keep that spirit going. But there's no, that's a year away at this point, so we don't have specific details.
Cool. Buzz, any events you want to shout out?
4th of May. We have another store, Champ. We found a store that had a kit. Let's go.
All right. The big one for us, of course, out here is Trial by Combat. Chris Vax. We just call it Vax event out here. But Trial by Combat, which is being run by Chris Vax in North Jersey, which also happens to be a lot of things are going on that weekend. It is the pre-release for War of the Spark, which I will be doing that Sunday. It is also Avengers Endgame release weekend, which I will be doing that Friday. And it's my birthday weekend, which is that Wednesday. Woo! So it's a big, busy weekend. So make time on Saturday, the 27th, to go up to Highlander Games in North Jersey, not far from New York City, not far from Philadelphia. Very reasonable drive from New England to come up. As I understand it, currently Jesse Carpenter is going to be there. So if you love Jesse and you love the amazing Necked tournament scene, you should definitely head out. Look at those House Aaron tokens, which Chris was sampling. I called spoiling for those of us by playing with them at Jesse's name day. That's just like one of the amazing prizes that Chris has done. So please make it out if you can.
I'm very jealous of those. They're beautiful.
I was as well. So April is rapidly coming to an end, and so we'll be getting to May, and of course, which means KublaCon. And I will be, of course, doing a lot less content after the 26th. So, yeah, as I run up to my wedding. So April is probably the last month for a little bit that I'll be doing regular podcasts and all that stuff. So big changes, big times coming up. So please come out at the end of the month, or KublaCon this weekend, right, Chris?
Kingdom Con, but yes.
Kingdom Come, excuse me, this weekend. Yeah, I think that is the end. Congratulations again to Sean Emberley for winning. Congratulations to Team Night's Watch for winning the team tournament. And I want to thank Tom and Trey for joining us. And we will be back for our next episode, the 23rd. So we'll talk about everything coming into Vax event. Maybe we might have a new pack to talk about and all kinds of stuff. So thank you all for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Second Sons, and take care and have a good night.